Thank you, Julian. At this point, if you have any questions, we will not talk about specific cases because some of these are actually still going on in trial. But if we can answer things in general, we'll try to do that. So, are there any questions?
Chuck, is this the basis of an ongoing program?
Some of the things that lessons learned from this initiative will be going forward. Absolutely, our partnerships have been good. They're great. We're going to continue those. Some of the inquiries about asking people for non-firearm related arrest about guns, if they know anything about guns, we will continue some of that. So what we learned and what worked, we'll continue.
About how many people participated and got that $1,500 reward for a tip that led to an arrest involving a gun?
Actually, very few. I believe, and I don't have the exact number, but I want to say one or two. The problem with the tip component of this is it takes a while from the time it gets in to the time we process it. And a lot of people that gave us information didn't actually go through the formal channels of calling it in. A lot of what we gathered was people that had a relationship with a police officer or a detective, and they didn't go through Crime Stoppers. So hopefully all those flyers that we passed out for the gun bounty program will get out there in the community, and we'll still be able to get some fruition of more guns off the street, if you will, later on as those things and that information gets out there.
So most of these guns were seized during those home visits with the probation and parole officer?
Well, no, they were seized from a variety of sources, from our search warrants that we were doing for narcotics to our partnerships with ATF, to there was a few of them. I don't know if the executive summary mentions it, but there were, I think, a dozen or 15 that we're taking as a result of the home visits that we did with probation and parole. So again, they came from a variety of sources and a variety of individuals. Again, I think 34 individuals were responsible for these firearms that you see here today. These are not any of the turn-ins. These are not things. These are, again, I would emphasize, these were guns taken from criminals. They were not taken as turn-ins or voluntary relinquishments to our agency. These were actually taken as part of a criminal activity or enterprise.
But wouldn't the narcotics-related seizures, wouldn't that be business as usual cases? You would already be working, homes you would already be going into, weapons you would already be finding?
You would think that, but not in a way that we were actually targeting. Their mission kind of went away from the actual sale and possession of narcotics for that 6-week period and turned to those things that had joint things with guns and drugs. Now, as the mayor said, typically you will find guns and drugs, illegal guns and drugs mixed together, things that you did. But even our vice and narcotics unit put an extra emphasis on the guns during that 6-week period. And we're really paying attention to what their informants and things were telling them as it related to guns. So ordinarily we might not have done a search warrant at a particular house because of the, didn't have much narcotics there or something like that. But in this case, if we heard it had a gun, we were going.
Is that something that could be
Sure.
forward going?
Sure. I don't want to give away our tactics, but certainly we will continue.
Isn't that quicker though? Because I mean, just the gun, you don't have to do a buy or sell or anything like that. You just have that gun. It's in the possession of somebody who shouldn't have a gun. Back to prison it goes.
Well, there are people out there actually selling guns just as though they were in a illegal enterprise, just as they are drugs. It's not all drugs and it's not all guns, but frequently they're together.
Chief, I think we just want to clarify here. So none of these, or just 2 of them, came from an actual transaction with the bounty program. Is that correct? I mean, because we're trying to, when it comes to this tip idea, right? You get $100 to turn somebody in that you know an illegal firearm. That's not the case.
Well, it's 1,000, which is a little bit more than 100, but yeah. What we were trying to do with part of this initiative was to get the information out there in the community. Remember we had our incident in 2009 where Paris White in Hamilton was killed. And we had a kind of a spike in the tips when that happened because we started the initiative in that program. Well, part of this was to get the information back out and kind of rekindle that idea. So we're not going to know whether or not it's going to pay off probably for the coming months. Because what I'd like to see is over a period of time, our tips increase through Crime Stoppers. And over 6 weeks, you're not going to see that trend. So, we'll look 6 months, 12 months, and let's see if we're getting some more because of all the information we provided to the community.
So the guns that you have had seized thus far, how much of a dent do you think that's made in the amount of illegal guns that are out there?
I think it's a small dent, unfortunately. Some of these, we don't run into these all that often on the street, so to speak, but they're out there. And we will continue to focus on doing this and trying to take these type of guns off our streets. It's a shame You know, we've got, here's a, what was it, a 100-round shotgun magazine? 20-round shotgun magazine. I'd never seen one before, but it goes to a shotgun, you know, and who needs 20 rounds in a shotgun? And you can see we have silencers, and we have, you know, 30, 40-round clips of magazines. And I just got back from Tallahassee. It was kind of a point of discussion we had with some of our legislative delegation up there about gun control and that sort of thing. And I'm real worried about where we are headed as a state and as a country with some of this. I think there's some things like universal background checks that we can all agree on that make perfect sense for us to do. You know, intelligent people can debate about things, but I don't think anybody would say that any of these things belong in a criminal's hand. And again, that's what we're continuing to focus on.
In that period, does this represent all the guns that you've taken, or is this just a representative sample?
This is the ones we've taken from the criminals. We took about 120 actually off the street. There were 120 guns that we took in, which is about double what we would normally take in during that 6-week period.
And they're all out on the table here right now?
Yeah, these are the 80 guns that were actually done where we had a crime and a charge and an individual arrested because of it.
If most of them then were taken though through an increased investigative process, but not necessarily through $1,000 or whatever it is for tips, did the bounty program work?
I think so. You know, like I said, a couple things that we did with our partnerships that were out. I mean, you tell me. You got 80 guns off the street that the criminals had. You know, to me, that's a success for what we tried. Again, some of it we won't know for probably weeks or months to come because we don't know if people will be calling and seeing something like this. Hey, my neighbor, you know, my kid down the street, somebody at the school was talking about something. You know, one of the first things that we got when this thing started was the kid at Gibbs High School. We got one of our folks that were involved in this process. I got the tip about the gun in the locker at Gibbs High School. So it was like the second day, I believe, we made an arrest in that case. It probably wouldn't have happened without this initiative. So what could have it prevented, I don't know. But I'm telling you, these 80 guns won't ever hurt anybody again. So yeah, I think from that perspective, it was successful.
On your visit to Tallahassee, what do you think the train is, what do you think the train has left the track on gun control, and why?
I still think there's time for debate on it. I don't think it's going to go as far as law enforcement would particularly like it, but I think that there's still time for us to make some changes federally and at the state level to deal with this. But it's going to take some political courage for people to be able to do that. And, you know, hopefully showing something like this today will help. Thank you. And it will be around for questions if you have any individually, I guess.
And we also noticed at the start here that about a dozen members of the Florida Probation and Parole came in, and I believe the two directors are here, Brian Heberlin and Corliss Campbell. Is that correct? Sure. Would either of you like to make a comment? No? I'm sure they'll be available afterwards, though, okay? A lot of the details and questions are in the executive summary. Please make sure you get that before you leave, and thank you for coming.
So what happens to the guns now?
Well, a lot of them are involved in criminal cases, so they'll be returned to evidence until the cases are disposed of. All right, thank you.
Thank you.